and it seems like the other part of that is, you look at, I look at Game Pass, and I look at like what that looks like in terms of like, hey, this is a whole new way to get access to brand new games.
Yeah.
With your games debuting day and date on the
Yeah.
service and all that sort of stuff. You start to piece together what you had said about streaming and all this other stuff. Like, it seems like the other part of this is really about Xbox as a service, as well as just hey, you're going to get an Xbox console, or hey, maybe you're not. Maybe you're going to subscribe to Game Pass and play stuff on your phone. Do you feel that that's kind of the inevitable part of the transition down the line? Let's look past the next generation here. That's real easy. And does Microsoft, it seems to like being a services company. Do you ever see a point where it might make sense?
There's no doubt that when we launched Game Pass last year, and you look at the long-term strategy there, that you're making games accessible to people who, for some reason, whether it was price point of the retail game when it came out, or
Right.
it was in the shadow of a bigger launch, and they just didn't see this game when it came out. And we see that in Game Pass today. I mean, people in Game Pass, there's two stats that always surprise me. One is, I think on a monthly average, a Game Pass player plays 4 or 5 more games than a non-Game Pass player. They just go and click, which is, and they're more games. So that's not their total game. They're playing a lot more games. They're also buying more games, which at first I'm like, that surprised me. Okay, you're in Game Pass, but what happens is just as they're turning on their console more, obviously, to go play more games.
Right.
They're getting connected to more friends. That's also true of people in Game Pass. And then they go out and buying more games, even though they're part of this subscription. And we're continuing, as you said, to add games to Game Pass. And then you take the next leap and says, okay, for a customer where paying $60 for a retail game isn't really part of what they can either afford or just their lifestyle right now.
Right.
Does that model open up opportunities on other devices? Absolutely, I think it does. I think PC is an obvious place for us to go because we're Windows.
Of course.
Our PC portfolio in Game Pass today is not great, so we'd need to go do more work there before I'd want to launch it and try to get you to sign up or something.
Right. Yeah.
And then you take that and you say, okay, I've got this service that could go to any device. I think that just opens up opportunities for developers because, as I said before, if I'm a developer of a game that is locked to a couple devices, all of a sudden I'm in this service that reduces kind of business model friction on people playing more games and reaches more devices. The other thing I'll say on Game Pass with Sea of Thieves and State of Decay, too, the 2 games we've launched in, it's just 2 games, so I don't know that means we have complete data. But on those 2 games, we sold more copies of those games than we expected.
Interesting.
I mean, we have our internal forecast.
Yeah.
You can't do an A/B test of what if it was in and what if it was out. So I don't have the before and after on both scenarios. But I guess people just have to trust me, whatever that means for a video game exec. But that we had our forecast for how many copies of Sea of Thieves we were going to sell, and we sold more than we did, significantly more. And the same thing was true of State of Decay, even though both of them were in Game Pass.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess on some level that makes sense because if you look at both games, they are, in the case of Sea of Thieves, it is like a social experience.
Yeah.
If you've got more of your friends playing that game because they're in Game Pass or because they bought it, either way, they're going to be more likely to influence you to pick it up. I would assume State of Decay 2, probably a similar situation with its multiplayer aspect. You're going to.
Yeah, the only thing, and I don't have data on this because we haven't done it yet, but the only thing I might add on top of that is I actually think it's just because more people are playing the game. Because when you sit down and you see what are they playing in your friends list, all of a sudden you have millions of people that are playing the game. And yeah, I think social games have even more virality because you're like, hey, come on my galley, let's go.
Right.
Let's go fight. Let's go pirate some people. But also, when you just see what all your friends are playing, it's marketing in a way, right? Instead of buying an ad on TV or something, all of a sudden you just have a lot of people playing. And it also means you didn't have to take your game and make it free because you can still sell copies of the game, and it sits inside of a subscription like that. We'll see. Horizon will hit into Game Pass. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Fallout and Division, obviously those have been out for a while, just hit, and Elder Scrolls. Master Chief Collection's coming, which I think in a way is a perfect game for Game Pass.
Yeah.
But just so people don't think it's all about Game Pass, I love people buying games on our platform and playing games.
It's the other part of this that I, when I start like playing this out in my head as to how this goes, 5-10 years down the line, is it gets into that game preservationist thing where it's like, okay, well, what happens when no one owns games anymore?
Yeah.
Because like EA has their service.
Yeah.
They're getting into a similar space. Building on top of the Access program.
Yeah.
And so you have this situation where is everyone just trying to launch their own version of Netflix, and reasonably how many of those services can a player be expected to sign up for? And then on top of that, there's that case of just like, well, what happens when no one actually owns any games?
And all of a sudden the servers aren't on when I log in, and
right, and
nobody can
yanked away
authenticate.
completely.
I'm with you.